Well, Dale, what's this going on week 4? And we're just about halfway there, man. Some of these teams are
Yeah.
just living by prayer. Sorry, I had to do a little Bon Jovi there for you, but anyway, man, exciting times, exciting times. Now, the one thing I've been trying to get through you, you told me you sent me a message. Hey, I got a big surprise. Got a big surprise. Can't tell you about it until you're on there. Dale, what the heck is your big surprise? Please tell
I
me.
don't, yeah, I don't know if it's a great surprise, but I'll tell you what led into it. Yesterday evening, I started getting a ton of emails in my uh, Carolina Varsity account. And when I say a ton, it ended up being over 6,000 emails. So I had to investigate what was going on, which meant it was probably coming from the website, and I had to go see what was going on the website. I don't spend enough time on it. And once I logged in, well, I started working on things. And um, I I found, I believe, what was generating the issue. The funny thing was it was all going to one particular email account, which was a valid email account. It was somebody who had created an account this fall called SV is back. And I'm sure that Sun Valley is what the SV was for. I get a lot of registrations of, false accounts, and I get reports, gosh, all the time that, like, one of my reports today said in the last 10 minutes, my Carolina Varsity had been attacked by 1,000 different sites. So I've got shields up and everything to protect against all that. I don't have to worry about it. What had happened was is somebody got in on one of the forums and spammed the heck out of it. And then emails were being sent out to one individual. So what I did, Jim, is I went in and I cleaned up the forums tremendously. And I got to thinking, because Anthony still posts content to Carolina Varsity. Anthony does his stuff through write-ups. He likes to write. So every week, Anthony's putting up an article about his game that he goes to. And I'm going to clean all that up and make that better. Um, it looks like we're going to have some basketball activity. We've got basketball activity, actually. I don't know if you've noticed, but
Right. Oh, yeah.
yeah, so we're going to have basketball activity this year, which has not really been something we've had a lot of. I used to take pictures and do a little videos, but I'd stopped doing that. Um, Maybe we're going to have some wrestling content. I expect that we'll also have baseball content because Shane is doing the baseball stuff. We got him doing basketball, and there's a photographer at Olympic uh, who's, you probably have seen some of his photos. He came in about 5 weeks ago, and he posted an Olympic basketball video. Olympic had a real big win the other night against Chambers.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe I'm going to try to find a way to align some things in through the website since it's there, and make it better that so that maybe some comments can more easily go against Anthony's articles. And I don't know. I ended up spending a lot of time today on the site, updating things and cleaning up things, and making, and by updating things I mean making sure all the software modules that are on it are up to date so that I can't get hacked. That stuff usually happens automatically, but I did spend a little more time on it today, Jim. So it was a surprise to me to do it. Um, so I thought I might make a comment about it and let people know that we got other content. It's on Facebook, and I'm gonna find a way to get it aligned out to the website because not everybody uses Facebook. Um, and we don't know what's going to happen with Twitter. I still wonder what the fate of Twitter is going to be.
I'll give you a kind of hint. It's like I don't know if it's like a granny knot noose or what it is, but something that comes around your neck like this right here.
Yeah,
It's really painful watching this. It's like seeing a guy with a $44 billion toy
exactly.
just chewing it up and spitting it out and doesn't care who gets in the way, you know.
Exactly. Or like a guy or somebody with $44 billion standing up and taking a, a match or a blowtorch, holding up $100 bill, or $1,000 bill, burn it, $1,000 bill, burn it, $1,000 bill, burn it. You know, that's what it feels like.
It reminds me of one of those, what was it, the Bugs Bunny shows where the grandmother's like, is rich and everything. She keeps on throwing another stack of $100 bills on the fire to
Yep,
keep
yep.
the house warm. I mean, that's the better way to do it.
That's a good way to put it. I might hunt and see if that's in a little short GIF or something. But it's I shouldn't say worries me, but Twitter is a platform that is good for getting information about content out. And
yeah, it's real fast. Gets to your audience.
exactly. And it's the rate that it's going right now, it's going to burn. So it's burning right now. Excuse me. It's Elon seems to think I saw him posted. I think it was this morning he did it. He does this not just this morning, but he just did one little post this morning. A tweet this morning, I think it was. Aren't we having fun? Like, no, I'm thinking, how many CEOs, and he's CEO of too many companies too, by the way.
Yeah.
The Tesla people are getting kind of concerned about what he's doing and the amount of time that he's spent on Twitter. I mean, he's posting on Twitter like boom, boom. So anyway, because of that, and there's no certainty to what can replace Twitter right now. There is a platform which we got a couple of people watching. The guy who founded Twitter, Jack Dorsey, has been working on a thing called Blue Sky. And so something like that may come up and replace it. But I'm going to try to find a way to align that Facebook content out onto the website better. A lot of the high school kids, for example, don't do Facebook. They're the only ones that are on Twitter are the football players, so that they can tweet out their videos and stay in contact with recruiters. But they're mainly over on TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat, and there may be some other place that they're at.
The one person I tweet with more than anybody else, and you'll laugh at this. It's a movie star that's about 20 years older than me. Her name is Morgan Fairchild.
I know who she is.
And great actress. One of my favorite. Real great lady. She has her spouse is, or not spouse, her partner, I guess I should say, is of 40 some years, is in a convalescent home, and just a really good person, and
right.
And we'll chat about mask or whatever and stuff like that. And she actually responds back to me, which I'm just humbled that she would do that. But
right.
From knowing more about her, it kind of is more about her character or anything else. But
sure.
Twitter though is a lot of times is I'm alpha male. Let me hear me roar, raw, And I don't know. I just don't get into that.
Right. I stay in my lanes mainly. And my lanes on Twitter are high school sports and technical issues, mainly, Microsoft products that I work with. Those are my lanes. I do, because of what's going on, I have been nudging over and watching some of what Elon's been doing. I follow Rex Chapman, and Rex Chapman, if you remember him, he played for the Hornets. And,
he played on 2 years for Kentucky, and
yep, exactly. Rex tweets out a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
So I follow him, and I'll look at some of his stuff, but we won't get into what we do on Twitter. But I try to stay out of all that. And quite honestly, the people that I don't think Trump should come back. But if he comes back, it doesn't bother me because I'm not going to be following him, and I'm not going to worry about it. He's not going to come on and tweet, but I can stay in my lane, in other words, and put up my walls and not have to worry about it. But if all the advertisers pull out and he's got no money to run the site and he's throwing they're not, investors aren't going to let him throw more money into it.
Well, it's like the emperor has no clothes. People are saying, "Oh, you look so great in that clothes," and the dude's naked.
Right.
And it kind of comes back to that. And I won't go into politics about a former POTUS, not mention anybody's name, but
right.
When the emperor is naked, and you're everybody's telling him like, "Whoa, gosh, what great clothes you have on." It's a cult feeling. I mean, I just don't know. Musk reminds me of that.
He's that's
let me put it this
that
way.
fits his character. I mean, that's Elon's character.
I don't
and again, I
understand
don't have a problem with that as long as he can keep Twitter up and going.
And I don't understand his stability. I mean, maybe I'm limited on that. I'm sure I am, but his stability, in quotes, is something that's it's intriguing. I guess it's like
right.
It's almost like the Bobby Knight of social media. I mean,
exactly. The Bobby Knight of social media. Well, you know what? They probably have similar characters, similar. So I see somebody's telling us good morning.
Okay.
They are from They're coming in from YouTube.
Okay, I was going to say maybe it's in Ireland. Top of the morning.
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know what that's all about. But anyway, let's get to what we came here for, Jim.
Okay.
Last week I went. Every game now is a fantastic game, as we're going to see as we go through the playoffs. But it was an interesting game last week. I went to see Providence Day and Charlotte Christian play for the NCISAA state championship. And Charlotte Christian beat Providence Day in the previous meeting. But it was a game that Providence Day jumped out big early, and Spencer Owens went with me, and we were like, man, this game's going to be over quickly. And hi, Carrie, you're welcome to come on. But they lost focus, Jim, and they did not play like the Division I players they're supposed to be. The coaches did their job, but the players kind of lost it. Anyway, this game that didn't happen, and Providence Day just beat an extremely good Charlotte Christian team. I mean, they beat them into the ground. And that Charlotte Christian team would beat most teams in the state of North Carolina.
Oh yeah.
So it was a very. The biggest thing about that game is because I like to tweet, I had to it was cold. I had to take the glove off of my hand. And over on the Providence Day side, nobody drops hand warmers on the ground. So
right.
My hand's out so I can tweet, and my knuckles are hurting me like crazy. I walked across to the Charlotte Christian side because Spencer had gone over to the other side. And over on the other side, I found 3 hand warmers laying on the ground. So I was able to put them in my pocket and keep my hand warm. But that's what I did Friday night. I stepped out of the NCHSAA and went over and saw a state championship.
That's an interesting thing. I've never been to I say never been to a private game. I've been to a game where South Granville played Ravenscroft, but I've never seen 2 private schools play together. Anyway, some people call like Cardinal Gibbons a private school. It's not. It's a parochial
Right,
school,
right.
which is a big difference than private school.
There's a big difference. Exactly. The environment, Jim, is phenomenal at Providence Day. It's a highly friendly, highly active, um, very, lots of enthusiasm. The Charlotte Christian people who were visiting are the same way. And if you go to games there at Charlotte Christian, it's the same way. The environments at those two schools, Providence Day and Charlotte Christian, I can tell you are awesome. And um, nothing meets the environment of Charlotte Catholic. Um, and I can't say, have you been to Kings Mountain?
I have not been to Kings Mountain football game.
So had a good chance to talk to Sam about it because of course they went there and lost Friday night. And that's a phenomenal environment. It's kind of
Who's this Sam guy you're talking about? Sam, say
again,
Griner or Greener or what's his name
Griner.
again? I'm joking.
I know. Was he green? And as he told me, he said, that is such a phenomenal environment. And so Carrie says she's going. We're going to talk about that game. It's different than like going to a Kings Mountain or going to an A.L. Brown Concord game back in the 90s, the 80s and the 90s, let's say the 90s. It's a whole different environment. Even into the 2000s, that game was, still a huge, massive game. If you ever get a chance, Jim, you should go. I think you'd enjoy it. Now, Providence Day's moving to the next level. They're going to go national, and I don't know if it's going to be next year or the year after. But so I see April posted, so she must be a alum of Kings Mountain, I'm guessing. 03. That's awesome. I love Kings Mountain, and
the one thing I always was told, like when I was growing up and even in college, whatever, if you're going to go to Cleveland County, Kings Mountain always had the better looking girls for whatever reason. I don't know if there's truth to that or not, but just want to throw that out. I just remember that from like this is
I
like
can't
from
say.
Like it's like from 87, 88 or so. But anyway.
Yeah, I can't say.
I can't say
get
now
into
either.
that. I've been to Kings Mountain. I've been to Kings Mountain a bunch of times, Shelby a bunch of times, Crest a bunch of times, and Burns a bunch of times. And all the environments are phenomenal. They're great environments with the the interaction of the fans, and everybody's good looking to me. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
But I can't say I'm not going to go. I'm talking about this is like back in the 80s. I mean, I'm in my 50s now. So
when you were a young man, right?
Yeah, I'm not trying to do the old dirty man thing. So anyway,
I know you're not.
I remember that. It's like when Matt Doherty one time when he was first year at Carolina before everybody hated him and found out more about his personality. He was trying to loosen up his team. They were at Duke and. They were holding on a lead, but it was very close, between Duke and Carolina. And he said, just to loosen up the thing, says, the Duke cheerleaders still have the ugliest cheerleaders in the ACC. And all the guys started laughing, and they ended up winning the game. But of course, it turned out to be someone overheard the comment and he got them all in kinds of trouble. But that was probably the highlight of Matt Doherty's years.
Oh, I remember that. I remember that situation.
And I always tell people that the ugliest cheerleader in the ACC is 100 times better looking than I ever will be. So just remember
exactly. So, oh goodness! But before we get going, let's see. We got a couple of comments. April says, "My kids are there. We don't miss a game. That's phenomenal. I'm glad you guys do that." everybody should. That's the difference in Cleveland County and Mecklenburg County. We have great football over here, but we don't get quite the turnout. And Gary, we're going to talk about that big battle between Kings Mountain and East Lincoln here just a few minutes. So, Jim, you want to jump on into? I'll bring it up. I don't know unless you have it already up.
I don't. Okay. I'm having too much good time here. So I've been off since Friday last week, so I'm in a good mood.
Oh, the great thing about what we do here is we really just talk. We just chat like we're. It's not a hard script. It's not we don't plan for any of it. I don't have any notes at all. Let's see. I need to get back to here, and I'm white, man. I had to play around with the lighting because I looked like I was, was raised in Sweden.
Well, I was thinking Casper, the friendly ghost,
Yeah.
But anyway.
Casper, the friendly ghost. Let me get this screen share. What do we think about Maiden going to region? We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. That's going to be a good one.
There's a bunch of good games. This is a phenomenal week for games. Okay, here we go.
One thing I was going to point out to everybody: if you ever get a chance to see some of the photography that is on Carolina Varsity site, Carrie Yount has done just a phenomenal job. I mean, she's an artist when it comes to some of the shots we've had, and she's such a big integral member of her family. And I just want to give her a shout out because she's done just an incredible job here.
Yeah, I cannot disagree with that. I think all the guys in a group meaning, not as in a gender meaning, do a great job. Nord, he takes a bunch of great pictures from primarily Cox Mill. There's a handful of people. Whenever Ken goes out and does his video, we get some phenomenal ESPN quality video because that's what he does. So whenever you see Kim Bumgarner post something, you're getting he's got real studio equipment or real field equipment.
Okay. Yeah, I got to give a shout out to Norrid Ross also because of all that.
Exactly.
It's kind of funny. His right across the street from him, from Norrid, is a lady I went to high school with, graduated in the same class, grew up in Baden with, and she's like, Norrid? And like Norrid's like supposed to be like the most interesting man in the world. So he's like the Dos Equis guy. But anyway,
he is he's a great. If anybody ever runs into him, he's a great guy to sit down and have a conversation with. Can you see the brackets up here? Okay, so let's not talk about the East, even though it's seen. Let's go ahead and start on the West and go down.
Okay, so you're going to go to Eastern, Randolph, Mount Airy.
Yeah, the Eastern first. No, let's go East first. I'm sorry.
East first, okay. Tarboro, Northampton County, nothing to look at. Tarboro win probably by 4 scores.
Yeah, I agree. This is I think the 1A champion, Tarboro. And I agree. I don't think that's going to be the kind of game we'd like to see. Now, this one will be interesting.
This next one right here could be an upset. I'm going to take Northmore in this game. I think they got a little bit too much for Rosewood, but I will say it's more like a 10 to 12 point range, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Jim.
And to be honest with you, I'd like to see Northmore and Tarboro play in the Eastern Regional, just simply because both those teams run, and I love teams that run the ball. It's going to be run versus run, and whoever gets behind is going to have to pass, and they're going to get even further behind because they can't pass. It's all running.
Right. So there we got a 2 and a 3, and that's the way that side of the bracket was supposed to end up at this point,
Right.
right? Yep. And up here we got a 1 and a 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 made it through on the East, which is what you would expect if everything fell the way it's supposed to fall,
You're
according
exactly
to the
right.
seeding.
And I want to tell you right now, Eastern Randolph is they've lost one game, exactly one game. They lost to Eastern Alamance, a 3A
Mhm.
team that made it to the third round of the 3A playoffs. Mount Airy, I was thinking Mount Airy might be undefeated. They may have no, they lost to East
They've
Surrey, I
lost
believe.
one.
They lost to East Surrey, which is a 2A team that's still playing. Or actually, they were playing until last week. They lost to Monroe, but I might actually go to that game. I have not decided yet, but that Eastern Randolph Mount Airy game,
Mhm.
it's going to be really good. I've, my heart tells me Mount Airy is going to win that game,
Ah,
and I could be wrong about this one, but I'm going to take Mount Airy in this one.
yeah, I would not fight over that. My pick is Eastern Randolph, but I don't think this is going to be an easy win for them at all. Uh, we know Mount Airy not only is a good team this year, but they're a traditionally good team. Uh, this is not an uncommon ground for them, so this would be a very good win for either team.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
there's this
and
is going. I think this is a one of those games that's going to be in that one score range.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
and yeah, I could. I think it's one score in Eastern Randolph's favor, but I can see. Um, I wouldn't call it a. I wouldn't call it. It's hard to call that an upset.
Yeah,
It's a small surprise.
Mount Airy's defense might be the best in 1A, and that might even include Tarboro. And I like Mount Airy a lot on this. I mean, the last three games have been running clocks against North Stokes, North Roland, who is a very good 1A team, Hayesville, which is probably the fourth or fifth best team in the Smoky Mountain Conference, which is the best 1A conference in the
Yep.
state. Uh,
Really, that
and that,
Hayesville scores kind of. I did. I
it's
expected Mount Airy to win that game and to win it relatively easy,
yeah, three scores.
but not a yeah, exactly 21 points, something like that. Not 49 points. So
And
um,
another reason why I'm picking them out area is because Floyd the Barber, Gomer and Goober
yeah, oh yeah, I
and
know.
all those
Yeah.
guys, they might have a warrant out for my arrest if I ever go back to Surrey County. So
I don't know if a
I'm
lot of
picking.
people. I wonder if our viewers are familiar with that and Mount Pilot and all that other kind of good stuff off of that show. Okay.
So next one here, Drawn Andrews. I think this right here is the game of the week in 1A. I think either team could win this game. I won't say it's pretty even. I'll give Andrews the slightest of edges just simply because it's in Andrews. I
Yep.
think Andrews might have a little bit of a chip on the shoulder, but I'll tell you what, Drawn's chip on their shoulder is just about as big.
Right.
Drawn, going into that Thomasville game, I thought if the game was really a high scoring game, that Drawn would win. It was a low scoring game, Thomasville would win.
Right.
Drawn winning in a low scoring game impressed me. And that being said, I'm still going with Andrews. I think their running game and just overall defense is going to be too much for Thomasville.
You know, we
All right,
talked
for
about this
Drawn.
game. I had to not had to. I was asked to talk about this game, so I did a deep dive into it, just to see where things are at, and Andrews. What a run game they've got, over 4,000 yards, and it's something like 80% of their offense. But the other thing that's important, in games like this, Jim, you look to what quarterbacks can do because you're going to get in situations where you need them, and both these teams have good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So it's not like you could say, well, all we got to do is throw a lot of pressure on drones, quarterback, and we shut the run game down. But the drone is a very balanced team offensively. They run and pass almost equally. They're a little bit higher on the run, but it's something like I'm looking at a note now. 59% of their plays go on the run side. So
That's pretty balanced for 1A team.
yeah, it is. It's very balanced, and 55% of their yardage does.
Right.
So it's a very balanced situation. Of course, there's lots of two-time players, two-way players, as you expect to see in 1A and in 2A. This is going to be a phenomenal game. I pick Andrews, but I'm not going to be surprised if we up and see Drone win. I don't think any team's going to win this by more than 2 scores. I think this is a one score game. We're not going to see a blowout here. If we do, it's going to be a shocker.
I just got a message from or faithful over in Moore County, Reuben Davis. He's a Union. I was a Union Pines graduate in 1981. He's very accurate with his picks, and he's taken Northmore over Rosewood 27-24.
Okay.
Which a little bit closer than I thought it would be, but I'll tell you what, I'll take Reuben's idea on that.
Right.
Reuben usually is more correct than I am.
Reuben's always welcome to come on here too.
Yeah, he needs to come on here.
I again, just back to that game. I pick Northmore, but I believe it'll be a close ball game.
Yeah.
I believe it's a game. If you're in that area, you should go watch it. Just like this Andrews Strong game, boy. If you're in that area, go watch it. It's gonna be phenomenal. Let's get down to 2A. There's good football here too, folks. There's some real good football. Come on. Come on, Max Preps. Okay. How about this first game?
Princeton, Wallace Rose Hill. There is a magic about Wallace Rose Hill that very few people outside of Dipple County and very few outside of their really big high school football enthusiasts understands. Wallace Rose Hill might be a 12 seed and Princeton might be a number 1 seed. It's still hard to go against the Bulldogs on that game. Wallace Rose Hill is just a phenomenal team. I won't take Wallace Rose Hill in this game. I think it's going to be a close game. It could really go either way, but I'm going to take Wallace Rose Hill by a couple points.
How many conference champions were there in 2A? Was it 9?
That sounds right.
I mean, you get a lot of these. If it's 9, you get a lot of the 10, 11, 12, 13 that are second place finishers in conference, and now they're seated at a 12 simply because their RPI was a shade lower than the person, the team above them, and their RPI is probably better than 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and they're probably better teams in many cases. So you don't look at that 12 and say, oh, you look at their previous game. They handled Nash Central, and
that second round they beat Northeastern, which really felt more like a semi-regional game than anything else, and so that was a big win.
They've come through and handled things. So, boy, it's a good running back at Princeton, though.
Yeah. My biggest question is: Princeton have enough defense to stop Wallace Rose Hill?
Right.
And that's where if they have a really good defensive game tonight on Friday night, sure, Princeton can win that game. But I think it's going to require a really good defensive strategy.
I agree with you. It's not a pick I can argue heavy against because I recognize Wallace Rose Hill is a very good team. I'd think about it another day. I would join you on that pick. I'm not sure. It's actually a pick I'm not certain on right now.
You're on the fence. I got you on that.
I'm on the fence, exactly. Because I know what both teams have. I think I know.
Dale, do you think it would be an abomination if and I use the word abomination. Let me repeat, abomination if either one of those teams defeated the other.
If an abomination, if one of the teams did what now?
If they had like a running clock or something like that, would it be an abomination?
It would be.
It would be an abomination. That is what you call an abomination.
That would be, yeah.
The word abomination gets misused so many times, but anyway.
It does, especially in the time that I know you're referencing. Okay, here's another good one.
Oh, gosh, where do you go on this right here? You got two teams that it's like looking at each other in the mirror almost. You got a team in Columbus County, you got a team in Duplin County. I'm going with East Duplin on this thing. I think they're just a tiny bit better than Whiteville, but they'll have the home field advantage. So I'm going to say probably East Duplin by 5 to 7, 8 points.
Duplin Winery. I'm going with East Duplin. Great muscadine wine.
Yeah, if you like muscadines, that's a great place. If you like sweet wines, and
they've got a white version, a rosé, a pink, and a red of their muscadine wine, and I'm talking about Duplin Winery. Yeah, I like East Duplin here. I think another great ball game. Yeah,
I agree.
Another real good ball game.
So Reedsville Maiden, Reedsville, their defense is incredible. They've lost one game the whole year. They lost to Page, which is a 4A team. They beat Eastern Alamance, which was the only game Eastern Alamance lost until they lost against Terry Sanford last week. Mm-hmm. Chase has an incredible offense. And they just couldn't do anything against Reedsville. But Maiden, they've lost one game. They lost to Watauga earlier on in the season. They keep on winning. Sometimes it's not as pretty as others. I don't know if Maiden has the defense to hold Reedsville. And also, I don't know if they have the offense to score at will against Reedsville. I think if you're going to win that game, you're going to have to score at will. I just don't see Maiden doing it. I think Reedsville will win by a couple scores.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here thinking not because I'm in a pick 'em and they said make your pick. I picked Reedsville, without giving it a lot of thought. Is there some magic happening for Maiden? That's one of the questions.
Yeah,
I do think I think Reedsville's one of our top-notch teams in 2A. And I think you're going to have to be on your game on both sides of the ball. And probably Maiden play the best game they've played this year.
The one thing I'll say about this game, you're not going to out-coach Jimmy Teague over at Reedsville.
Right.
If you're thinking about doing that, you can just throw that out of the window. It's not going to happen. You're not going to out-coach him. He's a great coach and even a better man. When it comes to outplaying them, yes, you can outplay Reedsville. You got to make sure that you want it. Every player on that team has got to play at 100%. It goes down to the long snapper, to the kicker, to the punt return team, everything.
Yeah, all phases of the game, exactly.
And it's got to be the whole time. And
it can happen. This is not an out of the realm thing, but
Right.
I'll say this: I will be surprised if Maiden wins. I don't know if I'll go to shocked, but I'll be surprised
Yeah, I'm in the
unless Maiden were
surprise.
to win by 3 scores. Then I'd be shocked.
Yeah, if Reesville all of a sudden like is down 42-0, that's where I get my shock feeling about it.
That would be a
But
shock. Oh yeah, that's an abomination.
that's abomination of sin on top of it all.
Oh
Oh, I see. Gary's talking about some rain is projected to move out by Friday evening. I
yep,
hope it does because I hate. I mean, I hate to say this. I hate watching games in the rain. I hate it when the fans are in the rain. And I know
exactly.
some games were moved to Thursday and Saturday, the week of November 11th, and that was an abomination to some people. I enjoyed it actually. I enjoyed watching the game on Thursday and on Saturday.
Exactly. I'd like to see if they could all get split up so that could happen. Because there's a couple games here I really would love to go see. And this one right here is one I would love to go see.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the one we're going to talk about now.
Oh yeah, Burns game. Okay, so that's going to be the next game. That's Burns and was it South Point? Is that who they're playing?
Do what?
Burns and South Point, right?
No, Burns and Monroe.
Oh, Burns and Monroe. Okay, that's right. South Point's 3A. I'm sorry.
Yep, that's okay.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I think that's another one that's should be interesting to say the least. Burns survived against Salisbury, and that's all that you can do against some teams. You just have to survive in advance. And I'm gonna take Burns in this game. I think they might have just a little bit more of Monroe. It's not going to be a blowout though, and I'll say that if these two teams played 10 times, so I think Burns would win maybe 6, possibly 7 times. It's not out of the realm of expectations that Monroe could win this game.
You and I talked a little bit about that Salisbury game as being a surprise that it was so close. And it's so, like you say, sometimes what you do is you survive in advance. Something happens. Uh, let me throw some things out because I did look into this game a little bit, and there's some real interesting stats. One of the things I've thought about Burns all season is their phenomenal defense. And they showed that a couple of weeks ago against Shelby, didn't they?
Oh
um,
yeah,
and they got a really good offense too, but but the defense, and you're going to see here, so does Monroe. And in looking at defense, first I'm going to say they both have exceptional quarterbacks. And we're talking about quarterbacks with QBRs up in the 140s. I think it's 145 for one and 142. So Kamani Robinson at Monroe, he's got a 145 QBR. He's thrown for, let me see, what are his yards? Yeah, he's thrown for right around 2,500 yards. And Ben Mauney at Burns, he's got a 143. I said 142. It's 143. Now, when you look at these, both of them their completion percentages are over 70%.
right.
That's good for a high school quarterback. That's good. That's getting up there in that Russell Wilson throwing good. They neither one throw interceptions. They both have 3 interceptions on the season. But listen to these stats here when you jump back to defense. So Burns has 24 sacks on the season, which is pretty good. And Monroe's got 20. But check this stat out. Monroe has 113 tackles for loss. Burns has 89. I thought Burns was, knocking it up. You're going to see, if you go and you look at these stats, you're going to see South Point's even higher. But that's a lot of tackles for losses. And And I thought this is a big discrepancy in the two teams. Monroe has 19 interceptions on the season. Burns has 9. We're the competition that the two play against. I'd say Burns plays against a little bit tougher competition because they, Shelby, I think, or excuse me, Cleveland County is a extremely tough county to play in, and you play all your county rivals. But over in Union County, football's pretty good too. So, Jim, this is going to be a really good ball game, and I think both defenses are going to bring it. And both offenses have the capability to bring it. It's going to turn out being which offense brings it. Because I think, I don't think either defense is going to have a letdown. They've played solid defense all season. They played solid offense too, but I think these two teams really they score a lot of points, but really their foundations are their defense. So I think this is a Burns game. This was my matchup at the start of the playoffs. I figured these two would meet because I think these are the two best on the west side of the bracket. But that'll play out at the end of this week. These guys up here are going to have something to say about it. Yeah, Regional and Maiden, but I do believe in my mind these are the two best teams on the west side of the bracket. Now let's jump to 3A.
All right, Northern Nash Trident. Trident is like Houdini. I mean, look at the teams they beat. They beat CP Aycock, which at one time was undefeated after like 8 games in the regular season. Mm-hmm. Beat them by 25 points. Then they beat Hunt, who is kind of surprised against Smithfield-Selma. They beat Hunt beat Smithfield-Selma 3-0, and Trident won that game. That was, I wasn't either team winning didn't surprise me, although Trident won by 19. Mm-hmm. Then they beat Jacksonville by 2. I think this week in Irwin will be the last week they play in the season. I think Northern Nash, I'm going to give them probably a 2 to 3 touchdown lead on this one.
So you think this – I think what you're saying is this kind of Cinderella run in the playoffs? Yeah. They're what is their record? 8-4 or something like that.
It's like 8-5, I believe.
8-5, yeah. It's not like they're a bad team, but they were a very, very low seed. 25.
I mean, they were the last 5 teams in the 3A East, and
right,
they made it to the 4th round. Now, don't get me wrong, Triton, they can win. They have some great coaching over there. David Weathersby, who's been over at Bunn, he was a head coach at Bunn. He was a head coach over at Bartlett Yancey. Have a lot of respect for David, and he's just a great fellow. He's on that staff. He's not the head coach, but he is on that staff. They have a great coaching philosophy over there. I mean, they know how to win games, and they know how to build character, and they know how to develop players. I think Northern Nash is just something special, though. I'm giving that game to Northern Nash.
Yeah, I do too, and I don't think I just wanted to make certain people who may not know that they have had a nice run here in the playoffs, but Northern Nash is at least a 2 score. You said maybe 3, and I don't disagree with that. I'm figuring it's at least a 2 score. Northern Nash may be playing in the last game of the season.
Now, this right here is the battle over in Cumberland County or Fayetteville, whatever you want to call it. 71st, Terry Sanford. I saw Terry Sanford play this last week. And
Right.
going into that game, I thought Terry Sanford would be a great offense against a very good offense against Eastern Alamance. I thought
Right.
Eastern Alamance's defense would handle Terry Sanford a lot better than Terry Sanford's defense can handle Eastern. And it showed you how little I know. The game was 27-17, a very moderate offensive game for either team.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Terry Sanford didn't awe me that much. Eastern played their worst game probably they could have, and they were hampered by the flu. And I'm not trying to throw that as an excuse, but
Sure.
if you're not feeling well, that's is one of those things that can come to play. I think 71st has just got too much for him though. I'm giving 71st probably I'm gonna say a 12 to 15 point advantage.
Yeah. I in a pick 'em, I picked 71st. Um, I don't know. You're picking in the 2 score range, and I'm thinking 1 score, but I don't know. Something in my guts keeps saying Terry Sanford could pull it out, but my logic says no. Go with 71st. So let's hop over here onto the west side.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about Kings Mountain. I think this game is more about Kings Mountain than it is about East Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, Kings Mountain has had a good football program the last 10 years or so.
Yep.
Historically, they do really good in the regular season. Historically, they make it through the first couple of rounds in the playoffs. And then
Yep.
historically, they come to a roadblock, whether it's
Yep.
Charlotte Catholic or some other 3A school, they somehow find a way to lose. Uh, East Lincoln is a very good team. I won't say they're almost great, a great team. They're undefeated so far this season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm kind of going back and forth about this. I want to pick East Lincoln. I really do because I think my heart is with East Lincoln on this game because I think Kings Mountain will find a way to give the game to them. I hate to say that. It's like some teams, some programs are cursed. Kings Mountain almost gave that game away to West Charlotte. So West Charlotte pretty much played that game even. Actually, they were ahead going into the fourth quarter by was it 19-7 or something?
Yeah, they West Charlotte actually jumped out on them and was punching them in the mouth. Their West Charlotte's problem was not having a long snapper. It put them into some situations like they got into the red zone a couple of times and couldn't do anything with it. Um, some bad snaps. They ended up having to punt on a 4th down. That I mean, excuse me, they ended up going for it on a 4th down that most teams would have punted. And that last drive is, that not getting that 1st down on that conversion. The thing that resulted from that was Kings Mountain getting its winning score. Um,
Right.
Kings Mountain beat a very good team. Um, West Charlotte has been a developing team all season. They're a team that has gotten better continuously every week. They had to play Huff, Mallard Creek, and Chambers. You're talking about really, really. So the Kings Mountain's got a phenomenal defense, and so the defense that West Charlotte went against was on par with defenses that they've already gone against.
Right.
But their offense has been developing, and they had a couple of mistakes in the Chambers game, a couple of things that didn't go right that they could have, and Sam believes should have beaten Chambers. That's just to say that Kings Mountain had to fight to get out of this game. And that doesn't mean that Kings Mountain may not be up to par. Uh, it will not surprise me if that was the state championship game last Friday night. It will not surprise me if the win gaps are larger for Kings Mountain through the rest of the season. And honestly, they should be if Murphy doesn't jump in the way. And I've been a Kings Mountain fan for a long time. I wanted to see Kings Mountain win a state championship, oh geez, the last decade, it seems like here it's going to be this year. In the third round, something happens.
Yeah.
So I hope, and I think if East Lincoln wins this game, that's kind of a Cinderella thing. Football in Cleveland County is a different animal, people, and Kings Mountain has been through the beasts. They played a beast out of Charlotte, quite honestly. So it'll be a good game. Carrie, you're going to get to see it. You're going to enjoy the environment.
So you're taking Kings Mountain in this game.
Oh yeah. I picked Kings Mountain last week. Kings Mountain is my pick to win the state. It has been all since about the third week of the season.
So I've been going back and forth about this because I have cognitive dissonance right now. My heart is actually with East Lincoln in this game.
Right.
I think I always identify with the Rocky. I don't look for the Apollo Creeds or the
right
or the Goliaths or whatever. I always look for the team that I can really identify with, and actually I identify a lot more with East Lincoln than I do Kings Mountain. Also, I think that they have history on their side. Now, my mind says looking through my eyes and on paper, Kings Mountain is the better team, and they should prevail. And they should prevail probably by 10 to 13 points. Whenever there's a battle between my minds and my heart, interesting enough, my heart usually wins because my mind's a little bit feeble. I'm taking East Lincoln in this game. I think it's going to be a very shocker. It's going to be like a 1 or 2 point game, but I'm taking East Lincoln.
Okay. I'm going to throw one more tidbit of information out that I thought was real interesting because I had a lot of nice conversations with Sam, the head coach at West Charlotte, last week before they played Kings Mountain. And there were certain opinions, we'll say, and I'll just leave it at that what they were going to see and what they were going to encounter. And then reality hit Friday night. And he does a frontline warrior thing. So he had one of the players from Kings Mountain on. This is one hard-hitting bunch of kids. It's the only way to put it. And defensively, I'm going to tell you now, this is one of the best front sevens in the state, any classification. These guys can play. So if they were over here in Charlotte, they can play with Huff. Huff might have a little more depth than them, and that's going to be the only thing that would possibly keep them from beating the Huff, would be being able to play 4 quarters with Huff. But
gotcha.
If they play 10 times, Kings Mountain's going to win some of those games, I think.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you.
That's...
I'll take East Lincoln. I always looking for a Cinderella right now. East Lincoln's
that's a good pick, Jim. There's nothing bad about that pick.
Yeah. Now here's another Cinderella chance right here. Eastern Guilford. Mm-hmm. I've had some interesting conversations with people about Eastern Guilford because I did not think they were good enough to. I wasn't surprised to beat Parkwood. Actually, I picked them to beat Parkwood. I thought Irwin, Eastern Guilford game could really go either way. Eastern Guilford beating West Henderson. This is a West Henderson team that was undefeated. Beat them by 18 points.
Yep.
That really surprised me. South Point just barely squeaked by Crest, but that's a that's a. I mean, let's go ahead and say it. That's a rivalry game right there.
That's a huge rivalry. Yeah.
I mean, that's a big thing there. South Point's going to, if they play anything close to what their potential is, they'll beat Eastern Guilford by three touchdowns.
Yeah.
The big thing is,
It-
will South Point play up to their potential? And that's the big question because I don't know that answer. But I'm going to take South Point in this game.
so you got to go to Belmont to play. Another good environment. This is the second best team in 3A, I think. South Point is. This is one of the best run games in the state. South Point is. They don't throw the ball much at all. Their quarterback, freshman, he's somewhere around 1,400 yards rushing. They have a great 1-2 punch in that backfield. Between the two of them, they got nearly 3,000 yards, I think, just out of them. This is going to be this is a tall order for Eastern Guilford. I think that I did not pick them to win last week. I picked West Henderson, so surprise, shock, maybe, whatever. We'll see. I think they're going to have to play an exceptional game just to stay in the game, to be in striking distance to maybe win. You said 2 scores. I'm a 2 score, maybe even 3, but 2 scores. Yeah. Oh, that's also one of the better defenses in the state as well. I was mentioning those tackles for loss. When I checked 2 weeks ago, they were up at 145 tackles for loss.
Gosh.
You think about that. In that Kings Mountain game, that's the game I went to see. They had a bunch of tackles for loss in that game. But Kings Mountain has a more diversified offense. They can run, they can throw, they can run a gap, they can hit the edge. I mean, they're so ultimately they were able to pull things out against South Point. All right, let's go over here to the big guys, 4A. There's some good matchups here.
All right, Hillside and Millbrook. Hillside, have they played anybody besides Dudley? And Dudley's a 3A team. Have they played anybody besides Dudley that's a very impressive victory? I haven't seen it so far. And Millbrook, they beat Cardinal Gibbons. This game is going to be at Hillside, and I'll be honest with you, Apex could have won that game against Hillside. I'm taking Millbrook in this game. I don't think it's going to be a shock if Millbrook wins this one.
No, I would pick Millbrook here as well. And I don't know if it's a Hillside. It's hard to pick against them.
Yeah.
But it's hard not to pick Millbrook if you really think about it. So
I want to jump in real quick about Hillside.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Hillside. That whole program, the fans, the alums have always been A1 to me. And before the Apex Hillside game, there was a video coming out by some Apex alums. Yeah, it was about going to Hillside, and afterwards you hear like a bunch of guns shooting. It was basically a play on that Durham was a violent place and all that. Hillside is one of the safest places you can be in Durham on a Friday night. A great place to go. Everybody's just very warm, very, very pleasant people. I don't want people to feel like Hillside is anything but a class organization. That is one of the classiest places I've been to. And that same thing with Dudley High School over in Greensboro. I feel the same place about that. And happens to be those 2 teams are 2 of the 5 remaining teams from the North Carolina High School Athletics Conference back when the state was segregated back in the 60s. Hillside is a great place to go. I think a lot of their fan base. Right now, though, I won't take Millbrook in this game, though. I just think Millbrook has a little bit more oof to them. I think they're a little bit more physical than Hillside.
Yep. They got a great quarterback wide receiver combination too.
All right. Here's a game that's interesting to me. Rolesville has underachieved for most of the season. I mean, they got blown out at the beginning of the season. They lost to East Forsyth by, like, I think by a running clock. They
Hmm.
lost Wake Forest. They lost another game, but they redeemed themselves against Wake Forest last week and won that game. They're going against a New Bern team that barely beat Jordan. Jordan had the lead in the fourth quarter against New Bern, which really
Right.
surprised me. I'm sorry, guys. As much as I want to pick Roseville, I'm picking New Bern. I think New Bern just has a little bit more on the plate than Roseville. But well, if Roseville wins that game, more power to them. But I'm taking New Bern.
Yeah, Newbern's the team that I picked to make it to the state from the East at the start of the playoffs and maybe way back into the season. I was a little, obviously, I was concerned uh, with that Jordan game. Um, not before the game, but as I saw scores come in, it was a bit concerning that that game was as close as it was.
Well, here's a little interesting tidbit. Roseville head coach last year, Martin Samick, in
Yep.
2020-21 season, he went to the state championship game. Uh, he went to I think the Eastern Regional last year, and then he resigned. He's now teaching at Jordan High School, and he's not coaching there. But I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee you, they're Jordan to be that close against that New Bern game. I guarantee you that there's a little bit of Martin Samick spirit in that program at this point. He may not be an official coach, but I can tell you right now, he is. If you're Dale, you've met Martin. You met him
Yeah,
several times on that. Just a super guy, humble as can be. He will go coach anywhere, teach anywhere. Just a superhuman being, and there's a little bit of a Samick magic on that, but
I hear
they
you.
obviously went out on that. I think New Bern will regroup
I'm
and win this game against Roseville.
I'm picking Newbern. I like at this time of year, especially right here at Thanksgiving. So this is the game right after Thanksgiving. I like a good run game, and Newbern's got one. So uh, I like Newbern in this game, but I it's not. It would not surprise me if Rolesville won, but um, it would shock me if they won big. I think Newbern wins that game. Now to the West.
Let's see here. Responding to a message here. So Grimsley Huff, I've seen Grimsley play, and Grimsley's the best team I've seen this year by far. I mean, it's not even close. I've seen Hillside play. I've seen some other teams play. Grimsley is a great team. Huff,
Hmm.
I think they have the talent. Grimsley has the experience about winning these games. They won a state championship a couple of years ago.
Yep.
That game is going to be at Grimsley. Jameson Stadium, I'll tell you right now, that's a very intimidating place to play. And I think that has a little bit to do why Independence may have lost that game last week. I'm going with Grimsley on this one.
I'm picking Huff. Uh, Huff has probably the best defense in the state, and their offense is performing a little bit better. So they won last week 17-7 over East Forsyth, which everybody was picking as the best team in the state. Um, yeah, they only scored 17 points, but when you hold your opponent to 7, you don't have to score but 8 to win. Uh, and that's the kind of game you're going to get yourself into with Huff, and that includes a Grimsley. I mean, they've been putting up points, but now they're hitting a real defense. And can they stick to their game plan? This was an interesting topic that came up last night that I really didn't get to chime in on. But when you have a certain game plan, and they're going to game plan against Huff, but having not played Huff, they're obviously going to run plays that they're accustomed to running in certain situations. So they're going to have their little game plan set up. And then when they see that that stuff doesn't work, do they stick to the game plan? And it doesn't work in a 44-point night kind of work is what I mean, Jim.
Right.
It works in a kind of a night that's going to get you 14 to 21 points, something like that. Are they going to stick to the game plan, or are they going to start? Now, everybody makes adjustments in game. You know, there's two types of adjustments. There's minor adjustments that are made from series to series. It's hard to make adjustments from play to play, but adjustments from series to series, and then there's a halftime adjustment. And when coaches start trying to make adjustments during a series or make drastic adjustments between series, getting away from what they had game planned for, that can that can create a lot of uncertainty in the troops that are having to follow.
Yeah.
And how they approach that. So I'm just mentioning this because I think that's what they're going to encounter. I'm not saying that's how they're going to react, but I think they're going to encounter a defense that they have not expected to see, and they're not going to expect to be throttled like they will be throttled. So can they purpose built into that? Now, I won't say anything more.
Good point. Very good.
Huff also has the shooting death that occurred last week that's kind of motivating them. It's going to be an interesting ball game, Jim. If Grimsley wins this game, wow. I mean, we really have undervalued them.
So if Grimsley wins this game, you wouldn't think it's an abomination, would you?
Now, see, that I wouldn't think would be an abomination. I would think that would be actually quite nice. You know, I got nothing against Huff, but it'd be kind of cool to see that you go up against a giant that everybody's saying you can't beat because most people are picking Huff, and you beat them. Hey, I'm all for that. So
I want to say right now,
make a bad pick, Jim.
Grimsley quarterback. The reason why I like him, he gets the ball out so fast. It's like, I mean, he has the fastest hands. It's like Tom Brady fast, and you don't see that in high school football quarterbacks at all. But he is able to deliver that ball fast and with mustard on the ball and everything else. So now this game right here, a lot of people consider that East Forsyth, the Grimsley game, to be the A game, and this right here is the B game, or the JVs, Weddington, AC Reynolds.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, do not dismiss either one of these squads here, because either one of those squads could end up in the state championship game. Yep. AC Reynolds has lived a very charmed life during the playoffs. They beat Chambers 17-16, beat Butler 21-17. Weddington just kind of like, they beat Marvin Ridge here by 10, beat Cox Mill by 16, beat Northwest Guilford by 21. They're just kind of like flying under the radar here. Like, I don't want to be here. I don't want anybody to see me. I'm shy. I'm going Weddington this game. I think Weddington's just got a little bit more oomph to them than AC Reynolds.
Yeah, this is the game I'm going to. I think so. Marvin Ridge, they had played them the week before. That's a huge rival game. Very, very big rival game. That was a one-score game. I did not expect that Marvin Ridge game to be much different than the way that it came out. I expected that to be a close game. because those are huge rivals. And Marvin Ridge is a very good team. Um, Cox Mill. Cox Mill was a lot like Independence, in my opinion. This is a program on the rise, by the way. I've had an opportunity to see them play. I'm a little bit biased because I consider Jonathan Grice a friend, and he's the offensive coordinator there. But they're a good squad, Jim. And Weddington beating them. And I saw Weddington play Ardrey Kell early in the season. And I'm real familiar with Weddington historically. And I've been to several of those Marvin Ridge games and Weddington Catholic games. And Weddington is a Charlotte Catholic. They're like a Charlotte Catholic in the way that they play, their fundamentals and techniques. I'm saying all this because a lot of people may not know Weddington. Weddington has been to the state championship and won. This is not uncharted territory for them.
Weddington also is, Weddington obviously is a Union County school, but a lot of people don't realize part of Weddington is actually in Mecklenburg County. It does expand.
It's right on the border.
Right on the border there.
Yep. And, so Ardrey Kell, which is in CMS, is a huge rival because they're real close to each other.
Yeah.
Weddington plays a lot of good teams. So this AC Reynolds game, AC Reynolds is a great football team as well. I'm picking Weddington. And this is the third time in recent memory these two teams have faced each other in the playoffs. Weddington had to go up the mountain, climb the mountain back a few years ago, and they were the underdog, and they went up there and won.
Both these programs were 3As in 2020, and they moved to 4As. So it's like they kind of graduated the same year. So
Weddington has been a team that's been 4A, 3A, 4A. I remember
like
back
AC
when
Reynolds.
Exactly like AC Reynolds and a bunch of other teams. I think this is going to be a phenomenal game as far as football goes. These are two solid teams, and solid meaning they don't make a lot of mistakes. Their fundamentals are on key or on point, rather, is the best way to put it. They both play good defense. They're both hard-hitting football teams. Weddington's one of the hardest hitting football teams you'll come across. That's anybody ever asked me about Weddington, Jim, that's the first thing I tell them. They're hard hitting football team. Good ball game. Let's see what our viewers have said. I see you've been replying to Jeff. I think South Point matches better against East Link.
Well, that's one thing I was going to mention, that what Jeff was talking about. He was like, I think South Point will give Kings Mountain fits. I'm not convinced South Point's going to play Kings Mountain. That's the one thing I think a lot of the East Lincoln people have on their shoulders. Like, people are already dismissing us because they're, Kings Mountain can just, dial in their score and they'll beat us. That's kind of the attitude that I think a lot of people have issues with Cleveland County in general, but right now with Kings Mountain,
Jeff's a Gaston County guy, though.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not picking on Jeff, but I'm just talking about in general that a lot of people want to dismiss East Lincoln on this. I do know that a couple of our guys, I think Shane and Allen, are picking East Lincoln in that game against Kings Mountain. And I give them credit on that because they're going on a limb like I am.
Right. Jeff and I were at the last South Point Kings Mountain game. And as far as a pure matchup goes, Jeff is probably right because South Point's front on both offense and defense can match up very well against each other.
Right.
The place that South Point falls down in their matchup is their passing game. That's where they kind of fall down because Kings Mountain's defense, being so solid, has less they have to focus on. They primarily have to focus on that run. Um, Unless we're undervaluing East Lincoln, I think it's Kings Mountain number 1 in 3A and South Point number 2 in 3A, and I mean all of 3A, East and West. That's just my opinion. So we'll see
You know
what
what I'm
happens.
pulling? I'm now an Eastern guy. I would love to see the East capture the 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A. I mean, I think we'll win the 1A. I think Tarboro will win the 1A.
Yeah, they're going to win
Uh,
1A.
2A are probably our best bet at this point. Might be Walsh Rose Hill. I mean, they're kind of the Cinderella team. 3A probably Northern Nash, and then 4A.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Newbern is probably
Newbern.
the lead, the
Yeah,
most likely
I think you named potentially all the 4 um,
finalists.
teams that will be in the finals from the East.
And I think it would be good for the state just simply because the West has been dominating the state of football in North Carolina for, I mean, basically the last 10, 15 years. I mean, 1A has
Yeah,
been a little bit of a switch, but 2A, 3A, 4A, except for those 3 years, Wake Forest won and the 1 year the Cardinal Gibbons won. I mean,
right.
it's been pretty much the West decides who wins the 4A state championship. The West usually decides who wins the 3A. 2A has been a little bit back and forth, a little bit more towards the West and the East.
Because of Shelby.
Yeah, I mean Shelby. I mean Raceville. I mean Raceville is basically
In
been the best.
Reedsville, yeah, yep.
Oh, Dale, I was going to ask you, did you like the name I've been on there today for mine instead of Jim West?
I didn't see.
Just look at my
Oh,
picture and see.
I see it now. Oh,
A lot of people are like, who the heck is Artemis Gordon? Anyway, if you ever seen the show Wild Wild West, you'd understand what the play on words are.
yeah, that's funny. Big out of state 4A semifinal in Dutch Fork at Gaffney. A reservation is a tough place to play, boy. Gaffney. The thing about South Carolina is almost every location, it's a big deal. Football is because the populations are like they are, say, over in Cleveland County, or you don't have a big Charlotte. Even in Columbia, it's still kind of low key and spread out around Columbia. In Gaffney, Jim, have you ever been to Gaffney?
I've never been to a football game there. I've been to Gaffney itself, though. It's not a lot to do there, except probably on Friday night.
You look at the peach stand, the big peach on
Yeah,
I-85.
I mean, you look at it 1 or 2 times. That's about it, you know. And to be honest with you, I always think about Spartanburg more than I do Gaffney when it comes to that, anyway, for whatever reason.
So Gaffney's got a phenomenal stadium. Um, that's a absolute phenomenal stadium. If anybody gets a chance to go there, I've been there once for high school, but I've been there several times for college. Limestone plays there. That's their home field, and it's better than the majority of D2 stadiums. So like Wofford, down where the Shrine Bowls played, it's a it's on par with it or better. Yeah. So yeah, that's old Tommy Knotts and Dutch Fork. We got to see them. I saw them first game of the season. I really like old Tommy. Let's see if there's any other comments here. So,
Well, how many state championships has he won at Dutch Fork? Is it 3 or 4? Or
I haven't been counting. It's at least 3, maybe 4.
the only game I ever been to South Carolina, I've been to a scrimmage back when I was like a kid between Pinecrest and some team in South Carolina. I forgot where it was. It was Marlborough County or whatever. And then there was my grandfather took me to a couple games when Waccamaw down in Pawleys Island, South Carolina was playing. And Waccamaw is not that big of a school. At least it wasn't back then. They were probably like what you consider a 2A here.
So I've been to a bunch of games at the division district stadium in Rock Hill. I've seen back before South Point opened. Rock Hill Northwestern were huge, big time rival games. I've been to Clover. I've been to Fort Mill. I've been to South Point, Gaffney.
Now, do you have credentials to go to South Carolina?
You usually go to each. So South Carolina, you ask the AD at the school. And that's the way I've been doing it because I approached the South Carolina, it's the South Carolina High School League or South Carolina High School Athletic League or whatever it is. They're not very well run. I contacted them back years ago. There were some games I wanted to go to. Oh, it was the first state championship game, and they played it down in at where those stupid birds play that think they're birds. They eat things off the ground down at South Carolina, and they wouldn't give me credentials.
So the Carolina
ultimately,
Stadium?
I got do what now?
Is that Carolina Stadium?
Yeah, that those stupid roosters.
Yeah, something about Carolina Stadium, South Columbia, though. It's like I guess I have a little bit of a bias because South Carolina used to be part of the ACC and they left us back right when I was born. Actually, is when the last.
See, Jim, I remember those days. And they left because of basketball.
Yeah.
And they left. One of the reasons was that school that I pulled for, NC State, because what would happen if people don't know, conferences. Yeah, so conferences had an option of who made it into the tournament. Was it your regular season champion? Or was it your conference tournament champion? In the ACC, putting high value on the tournament, said that it will always be our conference champion. So South Carolina they were consistently a top 5 team in the nation. They get into the several years there, they got into the ACC tournament and they get knocked out and then didn't get to go to the it was back when you had 32 that played. So they didn't get to make it to the playoffs, and McGuire pulled them out, pulled out of the ACC because of that. One of those games, Jim, was I think I've got the score right in my mind. It was 12-10 game that NC State won. 12-10.
That was over Duke, if I remember correctly.
No, they did this with South Carolina too.
Oh, really?
Gotcha. Yeah. Back then, games had those situations where players could just stand. So the four corners, that was part of what the four corners was all about. It wasn't just passing the ball to a corner, of that half of the court. The point guard would sometimes just stand there at center court and not move, and nobody's somebody might be guarding him or not guarding him, but they're not actively guarding him. And you'd see minutes tick off before a play would run. And then if they couldn't get the look they wanted, they just back out and and it wasn't just Carolina that did it with four corners. That was how teams that played South Carolina handled them. And so
yeah, back then South Carolina played a zone defense, and the only way to do it is to hold the ball and get them to go man to man. You actually had a chance against them that way.
Yeah, so that was yep. They used to be in the ACC, and then they took their ball and ran. They got mad, and they uh, they ran.
You know, back in 1988, McGuire did a video for an ACC. It was like the 35 years of ACC athletics, and he said that South Carolina belongs in the ACC and that they were wrong for moving out of there. If I had I always like having a conference with 8 to 10 teams. I like Virginia Tech in the ACC. I like the four North Carolina schools, NC State, North Carolina, Duke, and Wake Forest.
Mhm.
I like to see Clemson and South Carolina. And then
Yep.
the other two teams, you know, Georgia Tech, Georgia might be good, or, maybe Maryland and Pittsburgh. Either way would be fine with me. Uh, I
Yeah,
like having Maryland in there because Maryland just fits well with there. Having a natural
Maryland's
rivalry with Maryland.
yeah, and Maryland's been in the ACC for they
Like
were in the
40 some
ACC
for 50 years,
exactly.
60
So
years,
I remember when Georgia Tech came in, and it was like, this was that's too far. I remember the comments and all about the ACC was getting too big by bringing, and not in numbers, but in stretching of the geography of the conference.
Yeah, that's blown out now. Miami to Boston College, all the way down to Louisville and
Exactly.
Notre Dame. It's a joke.
Exactly.
I
Bobby
like,
Crimmins. Bobby Crimmins. Bobby Crimmins. Oh my
Bobby Crimmins actually was, he was the basketball coach at Appalachian, and
yeah.
he left Appalachian. Yeah, he played his college career under McGuire at South Carolina.
Hmm.
Um, he let the NC State guard steal the ball away from him in 1970, and that's the reason why State went to the dance and South Carolina went home that year. But uh, in 1993, after he won the ACC tournament, he lost to Southern over, I think Southern University's over, was in Louisiana somewhere, and he left Georgia Tech. He called up Homer Rice, told the athletic director of Georgia Tech, said, I'm leaving Georgia Tech. I'm going back to my alma mater. I'm going to coach at South Carolina." He accepted the job at South Carolina, and then 3 days later, he reversed his decision and asked Homer Rice if he could come back because he felt like a Judas. Bobby Crimmins is a good man. There's very few people that actually ever consider anybody else's feelings except for Bobby Crimmins. He was just a good fellow.
I agree. I liked him. I thought he was a phenomenal coach at Georgia Tech.
There are
Because
also so many
you
stories
know
about
it,
him.
when they came in, there was question whether they could compete. And um, what it was going to do to the ACC by letting a lesser school in like that. And I kept thinking, yeah, but we got Clemson. Clemson just held us up in football, not in basketball.
Yeah, Clemson's basketball was more like used to be a version of karate. You get all bruised up and everything. Winning a Little John was a chore, especially if the referees are willing to look the other way. But um,
So a kid that when I played youth football, this kid was 2 years younger than me. He started on the same level in youth football as I did. Then he went to Harding High School, and old Spurrier tried to recruit him to go up to Duke to play quarterback. He went to Clemson, and he started at in this era that we're talking about. He started at quarterback and started at point guard. Mike Epley. He was a great ball player, very, very, very good ball player on that team at Clemson. But they just were not they weren't a tobacco road. They couldn't play against the Big Four. In Maryland, Clemson would routinely get blown out.
yeah,
Well, has anybody got anything more to say? I didn't look back. I see you answered a lot of stuff. So I think we answered and covered all the
All right.
games.
We must be very effective today. Of course, there's not many games to talk about
Not
this
many
this
games.
week.
Where were you going this week?
I haven't decided yet. I might go to Eastern Randolph and Mount Airy.
Oh, well, yeah, that's right. You did mention that. That's right. You afraid they're gonna Floyd's gonna get
Floyd has an AK-17. I mean, he doesn't tell anybody about it, but they take football pretty seriously over in Surrey County. Of course, Floyd is more about Mount Airy. He doesn't like those Mount Pilot people over at East Surrey.
right. It's the more the Mount Pilot people that they're not too happy about. What was the Ernest?
Ernest T. Bass.
Yeah, buddy.
Oh, he was probably over at Dobson, over at Surrey Central. They ran some.
But he might be over there throwing rocks, though. You remember that episode?
Oh, I remember that one. You remember the one where like Andy was supposed to get married to somebody, and he used some. I think maybe it was OP.
When Ernest was supposed to get married.
It had to do with either Ernest or no, it was somebody else. I think maybe it was OP. It had to do with some hillbillies that demanded either Hilly or OP or Andy to get married, and they used invisible ink, and they realized that they were like part of witchcraft, and they got away from them.
Yep.
I think that's probably over at in Dobson, over at Surrey Central. I think that's what those guys do.
Oh goodness, our 3 viewers. I don't know if they even have a clue what we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, Dale, I'm fine if you want to call it the day.
Yep, I'm good. I gotta go finish up my brine and get the turkey in it and all that other kind of good stuff. Carrie's still with us. She said she knows what we're talking about.
Yeah. Carrie, you need to go on the show next week with us.
Yeah, tell us exactly. She should, and then she can tell us what she thinks of that phenomenal Kings Mountain environment.
It'd be cool if Carrie was able to maybe go to the. I don't know if Carrie is able to do this or not, but if she ever could get to the state championship games to take some photography on the sideline, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, she can if she wants to. Carrie, your pass will get you into the state championship. So if you decide you want to go, we used to have to let everybody know, but I don't. You can carry your camera equipment up there and shoot at the state championships. But you're going to enjoy your Friday night. I'd love to be there. It's hard not to go there, to be quite honest with you. But I'm saving it for next week. I'm hopeful that South Point and Kings Mountain are going to play. And
there's like 16 games this Friday, and there's not any of them that are bad. I'm just hoping the games are actually going to be able to play on Friday. We might have some bad weather coming through, but hopefully it's gone by then.
Yeah, I saw Gary said it's supposed to be gone by Friday evening. I hope so.
I'm in my 50s now. I don't like getting rained on. I don't mind if it's a mist or something like that, but if it's cold and rainy and it's dark outside and have to drive back home, it's not fun. So,
well, I was at that West Charlotte High Brighton game in the rain, and the the Olympic Independence game. That was that Thursday night. We all anybody that went got in rain. It's not fun.
Nope, not at all. Well,
yep,
Dale,
so,
I think
yep,
this is.
I don't know what I think you're getting a fried turkey, right?
Yeah, doing some deep fried turkey. So
I got a turkey breast and then a bunch of chicken breasts they'll be brining tonight, and they'll go on the smoker in the morning. And we're not doing ours till late afternoon here. So we'll have smoked meats tomorrow. You'll probably see a picture, maybe a video on Facebook.
Yeah, I was gonna say your cooking techniques and everything is just impressive. And every time I look at it, I'm like, I can't watch this too much. I'm gonna gain some weight if I do. So
Exactly. Well, what I gotta did is I gotta did that chicken. Did that make sense to you? I can't get it down. What I done did. Does that ring any bell to you?
I done did. Yeah,
Huh? Does that ring a
yeah,
bell to you about who said that a lot?
I done did. Who was it?
I guarantee.
Oh gosh, what period of time was this?
Um, he was probably doing that show in. I'd say the show started in probably in the 70s and 80s. I used to watch it in the 80s. I
Was it
posted a video
was
last
it
night.
CBS or?
No, it was he did it for the one of the universities down in Louisiana,
Oh
Cajun
gosh,
cooking.
I can't think who it is.
So you didn't see my post, I
I didn't
guess.
see that.
Um, yeah, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
Let me pull it up real quick.
Justin. I guarantee you, I done did what you gotta. What you gotta did is, or what I needed. What I did was what I.
Oh, Justin Wilson.
Justin. Yeah, I couldn't think of his last name. Justin. Justin Wilson. Yeah.
Yeah.
He, part of that was a put on of his using heavy Cajun language because I watched another video of him explaining what he did is he was rerunning his shows. So he's sitting there and he's explaining, like the last one I watched was about cooking in bags, using bags to put, things in before you put them in the oven. And he was explaining how he had never done that. And he spoke decently proper English. But on the show, he always spoke, Cajun. Um,
That's nothing worse than like a person that's like not from the South all of a sudden trying to speak Southern. And I'm like, it's just awful. You ever watched the show, the miniseries, The North and the South? And you had that guy that was training Swayze and his friend, uh, Beauregard or whatever. And he's from
uh-huh.
like Pennsylvania. And he comes up with this big, thick Southern accent. I'm like, dude, you can just stop it now. That is the worst Southern accent impersonation ever.
Well, what they do is they use the old Georgia drawl,
Yeah.
um, which is you don't really come across it in Georgia that much anymore.
No,
Um,
you got to go down to like the low coast of.
yeah, you get down to Valdosta or over to
Yeah.
if you're down in the Valdosta area, somewhere down in there, you'll encounter it some, but it's even less, in my opinion, than it say it was in the 80s.
I mean, both
It's
of
it.
us have lived in North Carolina all of our lives. We have different dialects just because of different areas we lived. Yours definitely more Charlotte area, more worldly, and I've got a mix between Stanley County and Northern Orange
Mhm.
County. So
Yeah, one of the things on these dialects that I've tried to understand why I have said why I say or said things the way that I did. And some I've adjusted, but I look back to where my people came from, and besides being poor, there's a lot of Scots Irish, and then some of my people came from some of my people when they came in, then they went all the way up into the mountains, up into Burke County, up into that area, and then you start getting that Appalachian which is a
Now, were they German also? I mean, I know there
no,
was a lot of
no.
Germans over the foothills, but
The
Scott
Germans
Irish.
moved, the Germans did more settling in the southern Appalachians, I think. Um,
Well, like my the Black Welders, which is my grandfather's people, they ended up over in Alexander County, over
okay,
Sugarloaf and uh, Statesville and Taylorsville and that area, and then they
right.
actually ended up in Cabarrus and Rowan County. And
So
I know
now
there's
these
some
people,
Germans over in Nashville also.
I don't have a lot of German in my lineage. Most of it is Scott and Irish and English, UK, Wales, and that area. Um, and the people that went to the mountains, so my name Ross, those people didn't go past Mecklenburg County. They
Gotcha.
spent a lot of time, they came in Virginia and then went down and then over to Martin County and then came over in through Anson and Union and Mecklenburg. And
Martin
then,
County. Wow.
yeah, so some of my ancestors, so I forget what grandfather is considered the father of the Baptist, um, the Southern Baptist. He was like
Convention.
the father of it. Martin Ross is considered the father of the Southern Baptist.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I've got a a thing that Wake Forest put out um, talking about that in like 1890 something. That's part of one of the things I have on Ancestry. So his name was Martin, and the Martin name came from the county. Um,
Oh wow.
Martin wasn't a common name. We had lots of James and Johns, and those kinds of names,
Yeah, we have a lot of James and Johns also in the West lineage.
and Williams and William. That was a William, James, and John. But my father's mother's side, they're Craigs and such. They actually came all the way across and up into the mountains, and then came back down.
uh,
Um, so they went up into Burke County, and
well, some of the Scott Irish people, like what my ancestors did, they went to was it McDowell County, Old Forts,
yep. Hmm.
and ended up going back to the east. They went to end up in Southern Pines, but the West, though, that we ended up, we were at the Isle of Wight, which is part of the Jamestown colony back in the 1620s, and then migrated down to Sampson County. We were
Hmm.
tobacco farmers. My great grandfather was born over in Mingo Township, which is on the border of Sampson and Harnett County. My grandfather was born in Harnett County over in Irwin. My dad was born in Irwin. My dad ended up, when he was 4 years old, moving over to Pine Bluff, which is in Moore County, which is
I
part of
know
it
where that
near
is.
Aberdeen.
Yep.
And then, well, when I was born, I was probably the farthest west any west has ever been, which is in Stanley County.
Oh, really?
But yeah,
I figured West was an English name.
oh, big time. It was
Yep.
before it was west was Dagast. We came in from France around 1066, 1068, that period of time, around when the William the Conqueror came in.
Uh-huh.
And look at so it's Sir Baron West, Baron, yeah, Sir Thomas West, Baron Delaware. My great grandfather, or my great times, whatever grandfather was a Baron Delaware, which is the state of Delaware. It's named after that family.
Uh,
And most of us ended up being underachievers, but we we
well,
did some pretty good things
The
over the past.
Ross came into Scotland via the Viking invasions because Ross, which originally was ROS, comes from the Viking lineage is where
So you
that
got some
comes from.
Scandinavian in you.
The Scandinavian, exactly. So that's where that family comes in. Now, I don't know, although my ancestry does go back to Finland. Um, I do have apparently some Finnish in me, according to the to the DNA. So I don't know if I'm what I tell people is I don't know if I'm a real Ross. And there's two ways of being a real Ross. Actually, three. There's two ways. One would have been you actually are part of that that Viking invasion, and were you a conqueror or a conquered? And then Rosses actually held a large part of the Highlands. They were one of the largest Highland clans. And when names started when people started taking names, last names, they started taking names. One, they might pick up last names based on their trades, but then if they were in the Scots and Irish, what people did is they took up the name of the clan that they served,
Gotcha.
that they were under. So I don't know which. I do not know any of that. It's interesting stuff, though, I think.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well,
Oh, cool. Well,
right.
I think we've got about everything we can talk about tonight.
Yep. Yeah, maybe sometime next few days we can talk about something that can get somebody to come on and we can troll live.
Yeah, sounds cool.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Let's think about that.
All right.
All right.
Well, Dale's good seeing you, my friend.
Yep. Y'all take care.
All right, take care, guys. See you.